When it comes to defining the atonement, Copeland says it wasn't a physical death on the cross that paid the price for sin. Anybody can do that. Jesus supposedly put himself into the hands of Satan when he went to that cross and took that same nature that Adam did when he sinned. Copeland is here referring to the nature of Satan, as God pronounced that Adam would die spiritually, that he would take on the nature of Satan, which is spiritual death. Copeland adds, the day that Jesus was crucified, God's life, that eternal energy that was his from birth, moved out of him, and he accepted the very nature of death itself. During an alleged conversation with Copeland, Jesus is said to have remarked, it was a sign of Satan that was hanging on the cross. I accepted in my own spirit spiritual death, and the light was turned off. Copeland also tells us that Jesus had to give up his righteousness, and that Jesus accepted the sin nature of Satan. However, contrary to this notion of a change in nature, of Jesus turning into a satanic being, the Bible portrays Jesus as having an unchanging divine nature. Copeland's definition of spiritual death implies a loss of deity for Jesus, which contradicts the eternal and unchanging nature of God as depicted in Scripture. Furthermore, the idea that Jesus was overcome by the nature of death conflicts with his assertions of having life within himself and being the source of life. This teaching of the spiritual death of Christ implicitly denies his deity and consequently the doctrine of the Trinity. Copeland goes on to say Satan conquered Jesus on the cross and took his spirit to the dark regions of hell. Now, Copeland's description of Christ's ordeal in hell is nothing short of chilling. He goes on to say, he, that is Jesus, allowed the devil to drag him into the depths of hell. He allowed himself to come under Satan's control. Every demon in hell came down on him to annihilate him. They tortured him beyond anything anybody had ever conceived. For 3 days he suffered everything there is to suffer. The situation seemed hopeless, as Jesus's emaciated, poured out, little wormy spirit is down in the bottom of that thing, and the devil thinks he's got him destroyed. However, Copeland explains that Satan fell into the trap. He took him, Jesus, into hell illegally. He carried him in there when he did not sin. So God found the opening that he needed. That word of the living God went down into that pit of destruction and charged the spirit of Jesus with resurrection power. Suddenly, his twisted, death-racked spirit began to fill out and come back to life. Jesus was born again, the firstborn from the dead, the word calls him, and he whipped the devil in his own backyard. Now, Copeland's account is quite vivid, but it lacks any biblical support. It misinterprets the phrase firstborn from the dead to support the idea of a born-again Jesus. This phrase emphasizes Jesus's preeminence and his supremacy over creation. Moreover, Jesus was not dragged to hell by Satan. Rather, Jesus committed his spirit to the Father and went to paradise. He also was not tortured by demons. Instead, he triumphed over them through his sacrifice on the cross. Jesus fully paid for humanity's sins through his physical sacrifice, not by undergoing a transformation into a satanic being.